The opinions expressed during this show are not necessarily those of this station's, its employees, or advertisers, but are solely the opinions of the host and the guests that appear on the show. It's time now for Tea Party Talk with TomZ, hosted by Tom Zawistowski, president of the We the People Convention and executive director of the Portage County Tea Party. Get ready to become a totally engaged American who is informed about the critical issues that are affecting the welfare and individual rights of all Americans today.
S&K Asphalt and Concrete has been serving residential, commercial, and industrial customers since 1988 with quality paving services. The experts at S&K Asphalt and Concrete have the knowledge and experience to meet your paving needs. From parking lots to driveways to repairs and resurfacing, S&K paves the way. Call today for a free estimate. 330-724-9090. That's 330-724-9090. Or visit online at skasphaltconcrete.com.
Are you concerned about your family's safety? Now, Target Thing Pro Shop is a female-friendly gun shop, range, and training center. Target Thing is in Garrettsville. You're on the web at targetthing.com. Target Thing is where they offer guns, ammo, and training to help you keep your family safe. It's Target Thing Pro Shop.
Fed up with politicians who care more about special interests than people on Main Street? So is Opportunity Ohio. We're working hard to solve Ohio's toughest challenges so Ohioans can create more jobs to grow our economy. See our plans and consider a tax-deductible contribution at opportunityohio.org. Invest $25 for a signed copy of Matt Mayer's book, The Founding Debate, Where Should the Power Over Our Lives Reside? Please visit opportunityohio.org.
Well, good morning, and welcome to Tea Party Talk with TomZ. I'm very thankful that you decided to join us this morning, whether you are joining us on Wednesday mornings when we stream the live video of the radio show as it's recorded at 10:30 a.m. at teapartytalkwithtomz.com, or if you're listening on the radio on WHLO 640 a.m. from 9 until 9:30 a.m. on Saturday mornings. And WHLO has a very strong signal on Saturday mornings, reaching 66 of the 88 counties in Ohio, as well as parts of Michigan and Indiana, and even parts of Canada and western Pennsylvania. So thanks to all of you who are listening on the radio, and for those who are listening on their phones and iPads and those type of things on iHeartRadio, where you can listen to the show anywhere in the country at www.640whlo.com. This morning, I'm very pleased to welcome back to the show a person that, we have a tremendous, those of us in the Tea Party movement have a tremendous amount of respect and admiration for. With us this morning is Ohio Congressman Jim Jordan. And Jim, I really appreciate you taking time to be with us again.
Good to be with you, Tom. Thanks for the great work you're doing there in Ohio and all around the state.
Well, we sure appreciate all that you've done, and we've just coming on this show is so important because the members of the Tea Party around the state, are just trying to understand some of the things that are going on in D.C. If anything can be understood that's going on in D.C. And so, you voted against the Cromnibus bill, which we were very thankful for because we really felt that we were giving away all of our leverage by passing that.
No kidding. And
you did a great job voting against that, but then, when we had the speaker vote, 60% of Republican voters wanted John Boehner to step down as speaker, and yet we could only get 10% of the 246 House Republican members to vote for somebody other than Speaker Boehner, and you even got 2 votes yourself, even though you voted for Speaker Boehner. How is that representative to us? In other words, can you help shed some light on why that happened and why you voted the way you did?
Well, there's a couple things. We do have a system in place where you elect the speaker in the conference. No one ran against Speaker Boehner in the conference vote, the conference being just House Republican members when they meet in a separate earlier vote that was done in November, shortly after the November elections. And no one ran against the speaker. He won that contest, uncontested. So it's sort of like you have a primary, and then once you have your primary, that's the person that represents you against Nancy Pelosi and who the Democrats put up. So there's that sort of process that frankly if there was going to be a challenge to the speaker, should have probably happened in November. But the one thing I said is look, there've been times I've been frustrated with the direction of our leadership, and I've fought them on many occasions. I actually voted against the rule which on the Cromnibus, which is the rule. Every major piece of legislation has a rule with it that sets up the parameters of debate. They wouldn't let us offer an amendment that we wanted to offer as conservatives, and so there were some of us who actually voted against the rule, which is viewed as something you shouldn't do. But you have all these things. The one thing I said, though, that's different is that even though there's been frustration, I think, with our leadership, the fact remains that we now have a majority in the United States Senate. So the one thing that's changed from the previous 4 years is we have a bigger number in the House, and most importantly, we now have a Republican Senate. And so I'm willing to give our leadership an opportunity to work with the Republican-controlled Senate to see if we can actually put things on the president's desk and help begin to frame the 2016 election, provide some contrast and some context to the 2016 election. And I think many of us were saying, okay, we're willing to see in this new situation if we can do the things we need to do. But let's be honest. I think we're going to have to produce for the American people and for conservative Republicans if we're going to have to produce and show that we can actually get that accomplished.
Well, so I think the first test is really in front of us right now because, we intentionally did not fund Homeland Security in the Cromnibus because it was said to us out in the public that, we would then have the leverage to defund President Obama's illegal amnesty, for illegal immigrants, and so does Speaker Boehner now? That's on him. Is he going to be able to do that? What can we really do with this Homeland Security thing?
Tom, you're exactly right. This was set up as the defining moment. This bill comes due on February 27th. When the Cromnibus strategy was put together, they said we're going to fund all the government through the end of the fiscal year, through September 30th of 2015. We're going to hold this one portion, the Department of Homeland Security budget. We're going to hold that because that's where we're going to deal with the president's unconstitutional executive amnesty order from this past November. So it's been set up for that moment. And here we are, just a few weeks away, and we have to deliver, in my judgment. That's the first big test of what I just described, a bigger majority in the House and a Republican majority now in the United States Senate. The plan they embarked on, which we thought was the wrong plan, we thought it reduced our leverage, not enhanced our leverage. But nevertheless, it's the plan and the strategy that was implemented. And so the defining moment will be February 27th when the Department of Homeland Security temporary funding bill comes due. And are we going to actually stand firm and stop the president's executive amnesty? I could not agree with you more, and that's the first big test. Well,
and we're going to be watching closely because, we are concerned that we're being sandbagged. One of the things that we learned here in Ohio from the SB 5 situation with Governor Kasich was that, you got to really be careful, what they're saying and what they're doing because they're really two different things. And in the case of the immigration situation, I mean, Jim, let's be honest. The president's going to veto anything that, guts, his programs, okay? So if you really mean that, if you're going to do things to stop his immigration, you've got to pass something out of the House and the Senate to put on his desk that has enough Democratic support to override a veto. And we're not seeing that. We're kind of seeing red meat. Let's give the Tea Party all those things they wanted, knowing for sure that the president's going to veto it and you can't override it, and then say, well, see, we tried, it didn't work. It's your fault. It's not our fault. Well, that's a failure of leadership, isn't it, Jim?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we got to. You're right. We got to take the debate to the American people and energize the American people in such a way that they say, no, Mr. President, you're wrong. The House is, and the Senate, the Congress, the legislative branch is right, and that you cannot do things that are unconstitutional. And here's why it's so critical, Tom. If we let the president get away with this, if he can actually get away with doing something that everyone understands is an unconstitutional action, where he gives 5 million people not just status to stay here, but allows them to receive benefits, work permits. If he actually can do that without a vote of the Congress, without involving the legislative branch, then what's next? This summer, when we get to the debt ceiling, is the president just going to raise the debt ceiling on his own without a vote of Congress? I mean, where does this end? So it's bigger than just this important issue, the immigration issue, and just this one unconstitutional activity, because it has this president will try to get away with it. And you saw this defiant tone last night when he mentioned the word veto. I don't know how many times in his speech. You know, it seems like he doesn't recognize that there's been 2 midterm elections where his party lost the House in 2010, lost the Senate in 2014. They've lost like 70-some seats in Congress in the House of Representatives since the high mark of 2009. So I think I sense this defiant tone. If we can't stop him here, who knows where this leads and what he may do next.
Well, see, and you make a good point, because in the president's speech, you know, I think he was just pandering with his talk about we're going to help the middle class. You know, they've been saying that for 6 years, and in fact, everything they've been doing has been destroying the middle class, and that's what's evident in the statistics as far as middle class income and jobs and things like that. I saw your speech at to Heritage, I think it was last week, and I've posted that. And listeners, if you want to watch Jim at the Heritage Institute speak about the future, you know, of 2015 and 16, I'll post that video link from C-SPAN. And Jim, in your speech, you talked about the Republican Party needing to basically take care of the people who make this country happen. You know, and so can you talk a little bit about your vision and whether you think Speaker Boehner is on board with you?
Well, let me say it this way, Tom. The one thing that I actually agreed with the president last night was this idea that the middle class is being left behind, and that the middle class, no one in Washington is looking out for the interests of middle class families. That's true, but the president's so-called solutions weren't solutions at all. They're not going to help the middle class. In fact, I would argue his policies, big government, big taxes, top down, all this mandate and control from Washington has actually made the situation for middle-class families worse. What our challenge is to let middle-class families know we are going to fight for you guys. It's not just about what the Chamber of Commerce wants. It's not just about what big corporation wants. It should be about what's good for average, everyday, hard-working American families. And the example I used in my speech is there are so many people working hard who know someone else down the street who can work but won't work and is getting public assistance. Now, we need to say enough of that. If you're going to get public assistance and you're an able-bodied adult, there should be a work component required. And we need to say enough of the corporate welfare, too. Let's throw out this crazy tax code, which everyone understands is unfair and is rigged for the special interest. Let's throw out the tax code. Let's lower taxes for everybody, but let's do a tax system that's fair for middle-class families as well. Those are the kind of things we need to do. Stop the corporate welfare, require work for people getting in our social welfare system, and put in place a tax code that treats everyone in a fair and free market manner.
Well, Jim, that's what we're looking for. What we're looking for, you know, from the not just the House now, but the Senate. We think that's what makes sense, and we'll be anxious to see, you know, if that actually is what the Republican Party does. So the moment of truth is upon us. Now, I've been reading stories that some of the conservatives, you know, in the House are thinking about creating a new group, and your name was mentioned in conjunction with that, to get away from the House Republican Study Committee, because it just didn't appear like they were conservative enough. Is that true? Is there anything to that?
We're not ready to talk about that yet, Tom. I will tell you the talks are underway. We are moving in a direction that I do believe there is going to be a new organization put together with the idea that we want to push for conservative, free market, freedom-based, liberty-based policy solutions, and push is the key word. I mean, that's our responsibility. So we're doing that, but we'll be able to talk more about that, I think, in the very near future.
Well, Jim, I really appreciate you coming on and being with
You
us.
bet.
We appreciate so much all that you do, and you're always welcome here. And just keep up the fight, and we're going to do so on the home front. And we're gaining, we're winning on this thing. We just got to keep going, right?
Thanks for what you're doing, and I know you guys will keep up the fight. We appreciate that as well. Take
All
care.
right, you have a good day. Bye now. All right, that was Ohio Congressman Jim Jordan explaining some of the things that are going on in Washington. I hope that was informative to you. And we'll be back with more of Tea Party Talk with Tom Z after these messages.
I'm Nick Skiriotis, president of SNK Asphalt and Concrete. As a Greek immigrant who came to America legally, my family and I have lived the American dream of freedom, hope, and opportunity. But that dream is fading due to an out-of-control federal government that is mixed up worse than a soup sandwich. We have a president who is putting more and more regulations on businesses, which is stomping economic and job growth. Government has taken more and more of our freedoms. They have taken over our health care and are trying to take over our schools with Common Core. We as Americans must wake up. Get involved before it is too late. We must fight to preserve the America our founders created, a nation that was founded on faith, family, and freedom. The fight is not easy, but anything worth fighting for never is. Our founders paid a heavy price for freedom. 5 of them did not live to see the independence they were fighting for. 9 of them were tortured. 12 of them lost everything they owned, and 3 of them lost their families. Now it is our turn to sacrifice and to fight to preserve our freedoms and the American dream. I am Nick Skiriotis, president of S&K Asphalt and Concrete, and I approve this message.
Hi, this is Amanda from Realize FAC. Are you a prepper? Do you know one? We're holding our first annual Preppers Ball at the Arena Complex in Talmadge. $10,000 worth of prizes, food, drinks, speakers, networking. Realize FAC has it all. Pick up your tickets in person at the Fin, Feather, and Fur or Grape and Granary, or go to the link that TomZ provides after this message.
Fed up with politicians who care more about special interests than people on Main Street? So is Opportunity Ohio. We're working hard to solve Ohio's toughest challenges so Ohioans can create more jobs to grow our economy. See our plans and consider a tax-deductible contribution at opportunityohio.org. Invest $25 for a signed copy of Matt Mayer's book, The Founding Debate, Where Should the Power Over Our Lives Reside? Please visit opportunityohio.org.
All right, and we are back on Tea Party Talk with TomZ, and I'm very glad to have you with us. Appreciate your listening. Hope you enjoyed hearing from Congressman Jim Jordan. Because really, folks, this is it. The moment of showing what you can do is at hand. And Speaker Boehner, was given a vote of confidence, reluctantly, as you could hear from Congressman Jordan, to show some leadership. And now we need to see it, and we need to see it on this immigration issue, as we discussed. We need to see it on the direction of the Republican Party. Are they going to prove that they're not the party that just takes care of the rich people, but also takes care of the middle class and the lower class? And again, that's not by having more big government programs. That's by having less big government programs. You'll notice last night in the President's State of the Union, he said maybe we ought to give so that the people some of their money back. Well, how about not take it in the first place, Mr. President? That's the difference between liberals and conservatives. They take your money, the liberals do, and then they tell you if you're going to get any of it back. And quite frankly, as we all know, not much of it comes back. Where conservatives say, hey, let's not take their money at all because we trust them to spend it wiser. And we're going to be watching to see how that happens. Amanda mentioned the Preppers Ball, and if you want to buy tickets to that, you can do so by going to teapartytalkwithtomz.com, and on the left-hand side of the page, there's a link there you can click to order your tickets and get more information. And also on our page, you will see archives. You can watch the show and hear the show on your phone, on your iPad, anything, anytime. Just go to Tea Party Talk with Tom Z, and you'll see the archives listed on the left-hand side. It'll have the date and what the general theme of the show was, and just click on it and watch it on your phone. Do what you need to do. I want to talk to you next about something I think is very significant, and I hope many of you have done this. If you've gone to see the movie American Sniper, this is about Chris and Taya Kyle, and I think this is a defining movie for this generation. It's not just a war story; it's a human story, and quite frankly, it's a uniquely American story, and it's an incredible love story. It's a story of love of country and love of family and love of God. And it explains, really the inherent conflict that is war, where moral people find themselves in totally immoral situations, and where you have to fight between your emotions and your logic. You have to have the mental strength and the courage to do what you know is right, even though that's the most horrific thing you've ever imagined doing. So in the movie, there's a scene where there's about a 10-year-old boy whose Iraqi mother gives them a grenade, a bomb, and has the young boy walk towards the American Marines who are coming down the street to blow them up and kill them. And Chris Kyle, the American sniper, has to shoot this boy to stop him from doing it. And it was interesting when he did shoot the boy, and he was very distraught about having to do it, but he knew he had to save those Marines, that the mother runs out and doesn't even attend to the boy to see if they're hurt, if they're alive, but picks up the bomb and starts walking towards the troops again, and he has to shoot her. And so you have to understand it. In war, these emotions are, holy cow, I'm going to shoot a 10-year-old boy. But what you're doing is you're really saving 10 or 20 Marines from getting killed. And that's your job, and that's the fight you need to fight. And this is what all veterans know to be true, and what so few of us now, have experience to know that that's true. I mean, think about it. In World War II, when our soldiers, where our brothers and sisters and uncles and aunts and cousins were out in the Pacific using flamethrowers to burn Japanese soldiers out of caves. You think anyone wants to do that? No, they don't. But they know that this is war and that there is evil. And that if you don't have the courage to do what must be done, you will not defeat them, and they will kill you and they will kill your family. And that's what this movie is about. And it's an incredibly powerful movie. And it shows the evil. I mean, the one key Iraqi leader who's a terrorist, his favorite thing is to use a drill to kill people. He takes a drill bit and sticks it in your ear and drills through your head and kills you. And he does that in the movie to a little boy. That's evil. That's the evil that is out there. And I talked about that last week. But all of us need to thank God that there are people like, Chris Kyle. And there are people like Taya Kyle, his wife. Because this movie isn't just about the war. It's about the price that his family pays for him to be in this war. That's what this picture is about. And this picture is about America and Americans who are willing to go around the world to this godforsaken place and fight for the freedom of people they don't even know. That's what we did in Iraq. That's what we did in Afghanistan. And for those on the left who berate this war and even berate heroes like Chris Kyle, they're just wrong. And you got to go see this movie, not because it's fun. You could have heard a pin drop in that theater. It was the quietest theater you ever heard in your life. Nobody said a word. There were no cell phones going off. There wasn't a cough. People sat there in stunned silence, in awe of this man who was a true American hero. I was surprised, actually, at the end of the movie that so few of the movie attendees were aware of what happened to Chris Kyle, because this movie is about him. He does 5 tours, folks, of duty in 10 years. That's insane. That's unbelievable to have the mental ability to keep yourself from going nuts in that environment, and then coming home and seeing your wife and your wife begging you not to go back, but you got to go back because you have this skill that will save our soldiers and help win the war. And then he comes back and he finally starts to get help at the VA, and he starts to help other vets and get his life back together. And then, I'm not going to ruin this. You should know he gets killed at home when he's trying to help another vet who has post-traumatic stress syndrome, who kills him. And I think you should go and look at that story, because it's a really interesting story about this young man named Routh, R-O-U-T-H, who killed him, and how the VA failed that vet, and how the VA fails a lot of vets, and how we didn't take care of these guys, and we needed to take care of these guys. You can't go through war and not be challenged at every level, morally, with your faith. And there were lots of people who lost their faith, but Chris Kyle kept his faith, and he knew what he had to do, and he knew why he had to do it. And that's an American virtue, and it's a wonderful thing. And so I encourage you to go see the movie. As I said, only 0.5% of Americans today are in the military. And that compares to like 12% during World War II. And so we're losing touch with what it is to defend freedom. We can say, we're for freedom and liberty, but do you really know what that means? Because, folks, I got news for you. We're going to have to find out what that means in this war with Islamic radical Islam, because they're going to challenge us all the way. So if you really want to honor some veterans, there's an event this week up in Northeast Ohio. If you listen to one of my early shows before the holidays, my wife Nan and I went to the Ohio Western Reserve National Cemetery in Rittman, Ohio, and laid wreaths on the graves of the soldiers there. And now we have to pick them up this weekend, this Saturday. We're going to be there at 10 a.m. at the Ohio Western Reserve National Cemetery at 10175 in Rittman, Ohio, 44273 to pick up those wreaths. and remove them from the graves. And if you want to have an emotional moment and really realize what bravery is and what it means to be a vet, join me there on Saturday. I think you'll find it a very powerful experience. I do want to talk about some good news today. As you know, since this summer, we have been watching the whole Ebola virus situation. We talked about how it was in America's interest, that this was a worldwide problem, a worldwide threat. And I'm happy to report to you that it seems like the Ebola pandemic is starting to wane. That in places like Sierra Leone and Ghana and some of those places in Guinea and Liberia, that they're starting to report less and less cases. Now, you still got to keep fighting this. Some 21,000 people have been infected and 8,500 of them have died. But things seem to be tapering off, and that's because we took action. That's because the president ordered troops there, and we helped to provide the resources. The world did provide us resources, and that's really, really important, folks. And that's a victory. But it shows that we live in a world that we cannot ignore. We cannot be isolationists. There are things that happen in this world that affect all of us, and we need to react to those things. And one of the ways you need to react, and I've talked to you many times in this show about getting right with the political calendar. If you want to run for city council, village council, even some mayor's things, the deadline for filing in the primaries for this year is February 4th, just a few weeks away. And so if you want to do that, if you need information, come to Tea Party Talk with TomZ, send me an email. I will help you. But we the people need to participate in our electoral process. And for those of you who want to run for school board or township trustee, that you don't have to sign up for that because those are considered nonpartisan. So those things you don't have to sign up for until August of this year. And I'll have that date for you as we grow closer to that. But you should be looking at your school board and your township trustees and other positions in your community. We, the people, need to fill those slots, not just elitists, not just people with political power. And we're asking you to do that. And for those of you who have no interest in running for political office, write to me and I will send you a flyer that talks about how if you're an accountant or a bookkeeper, we need you to be a treasurer for candidates. That's what we need. If you've been a financial advisor, an insurance agent, or a realtor, you can help us fundraise for conservative candidates. And that's really important. If you like to write or if you like to publicly speak, you could be a PR director for a campaign. If you love Facebook and Twitter and you like all that stuff, every campaign needs to have a Facebook page. That's where you communicate. So, join up with a candidate in your area and help them win. And if you are the soccer mom or the hockey mom or the person who takes care of your children's traveling sports teams, boy, you've got great skills. You can help be the campaign event scheduler for a candidate, right? They have to speak all over the place if you're going to be a candidate, all over your township, all over your county, okay? And if you're going to run for House or Senate, Ohio House or Senate, in 2016, guess what? Now's when you should be announcing your candidacy. That's what I said. For 2016, now is when you should be announcing your candidacy because the way the calendar is set right now, the primary for 2016 is going to be in March. Well, the deadline to file your petitions is going to be December 11th of this year. So if you want to run for Congress, you've got to get ahead of the game. You've got to announce that now, right now. So you have a year to campaign and a year to do things. So it's time for us to get on the stick. It's time for us to do those things that we must do to have our government work for us. I thank you for being with me on the show this morning. I hope you will join me again next week. You've been listening to Tea Party Talk with TomZ.